Why is this man somehow allowed and encouraged to go on extremely popular podcasts and discuss topics he has no business discussing? Why do people look to him for guidance? Well, let's start with his background. What Peterson actually is, not a neuroscientist or evolutionary biologist. We know he's a professor of psychology, but of course that's not the kind of thing that earns you an experience with the Joseph Rogan. No, Peterson makes his real money on the internet, or how he's put it.
Well, financially... No. It's been a boom, right? I mean,
yes.
It's which
yes,
is
yes,
hilarious.
I mean, the thing that I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to because it's just so damn funny. I can't help but say it. I figured out how to monetize social justice warriors.
Yes, as of 2018, he was reportedly making nearly $1 million a year just on Patreon alone. He has a YouTube page, a podcast, and goes on speaking tours. He wrote a book called 12 Rules for Life that includes such bangers as stand up straight with your shoulders back, never, and be precise in your speech, blemver. His official website offers links to self-assessment quizzes and online personality courses, at a price, of course. Get your Just For Me individual assessment at the low cost of $9.95. I shit you not. In other words, all due respect, the dude is mainly a self-help guru. That's sort of it. He's an Oprah or Gwyneth Paltrow or future President Dr. Oz, in that his primary offer is to aid those who feel like they aren't in control of their lives. Yes, he had a psychology practice and was a professor and contributed to the field of psychology in various ways. But mostly, it's this. Also, he sells lobster stickers, and we will get to that later. But for now, the entry point to Peterson tends to start here and then quickly expands to some concepts that are going to be a little tough to wrap our heads around. But I'm sure we will manage. And in a short amount of time, I swear it, just don't check the time code. In true self-help fashion, Peterson's journey starts with a young man at rock bottom finding a specific wisdom and then preaching that wisdom to the world. In this case, the wisdom of a Swiss psychoanalyst named Carl Jung. As described in his very first book, Maps of Meaning, in his youth, Jordan Peterson was left-leaning. He went to socialist meetings, but became disillusioned with the left, and as we'll see years later, became consumed by his hatred of them. But he also became disillusioned by ideology in general, and as we will see years later, pretended to not have one, even though he totally does. Young Jordan became focused on why people believe things and how they derive meaning, and he became plagued with apocalyptic nightmares and suicidal thoughts. According to the book, he finally found peace once he picked up the works of Carl Jung, and specifically the theory of a collective unconscious. See, while Freud talked about the unconscious mind, as in the meanings of dreams or repressed feelings or phobias or anything else that can be attributed to our brains working on autopilot and sifting through our days, Carl Jung theorized that the same kind of subconscious thinking existed for the entire human collective, as in a shared unconscious. And while you could say, well, no shit, that's what instincts and pop culture is, this spawned a borderline mystical way of thinking for Jordan, centered on something called Jungian Archetypes. These are symbols common among us all that come from this collective unconscious, otherwise perceived as common character stereotypes such as the sage, or the everyman, or the surly Bostonian with a heart of gold who is wicked smart. What I'm getting at is that none of this seems particularly different from the kind of thing you learn at a weekend screenwriting seminar, but apparently this is an entire psychological belief structure. And you could argue, as people have argued, that these Jungian archetypes aren't really impressive so much as they're vague and work off of centuries of storytelling shorthand. But I also suspect that I'm being very reductive about this as well. And surely, common myths and stories have effects on our psychology and how we deal with the world and people. But I'm trying to keep this video short, and I succeeded, so I don't have a choice but to be like, Jungian archetypes are goodwill hunting. And hey, if this all helps someone become a better person, then who the hell cares, right? The nature of self-help is, of course, that as long as you're not hurting anyone, more power to you. And on its surface, this all just seems like yet another way to work on yourself. The primary Jungian archetypes that especially relate to the individual are the persona, the shadow, the animus or anima, and the self. To sum them up, the persona is the day-to-day mask we all wear, how we present ourselves to others, while the shadow is our unconscious mind, like our sex drive and inner desires to eat our own shoes that everyone feels. The anima and animus are archetypal images of the opposite sex. You could argue that it's simply our expectation of an ideal mate. And finally, the self represents our unified unconsciousness and consciousness. Basically all the other pieces rolled into one, an integration of everything. And while being a little dated, this kind of thinking is perfectly capable of motivating a person to be more confident or, quit smoking. Except, as you might have assumed by him talking about shit like climate change, it doesn't really stop there. Peterson's obsession with the concept of myth, archetypes, and this collective unconscious urges him to not only comment on the individual, but society. And so he sure has a lot to say about subjects that completely branch away from psychology, aka shit he has no business talking about. In fact, what I just said about quitting smoking being a self-help goal, apparently Jordan wouldn't agree with that.
We have no way of confirming that this something mystical or supernatural actually happened. What this is about the language.
Stops people from smoking.
Well, you can stop smoking without any sort of supernatural intervention.
No, not really.
You can't stop smoking without supernatural?
There aren't really any reliable chemical means.
Like, holy shit, man, why does he have to make everything so fucking weird? I mean, I smoked cigarettes for 10 years, looked awesome doing it, and quit cold turkey because it was bad for me and my girlfriend didn't like it. Hey, thanks for watching that clip. Here's the evergreen end plate to ask you to like and subscribe. It's any day of the year where you are.